This is Oft Off Topic, a show where two men with the attention spans of a squirrel try and fail to stay on topic with today's subject. Where will their oral meanderings take us? Well, stick around and listen, because today's Oft Off Topic is... Akira Toriyama, the man, the myth, the legend, the god of manga, whose artistic skill is so powerful it may even prevent organized crime. Or, as we'll talk about later, perhaps he also uses his power to commit crimes, We'll find out soon. Nathan, what do you know about Akira Toriyama?
A lot. Not everything. I mean, like the dude himself, I don't know. I don't know next to nothing about him, other than the fact that he hated the Dragon Ball movie. The dude himself, I don't really know. Let's see. I will say this, like, Dragon Ball Z was the first anime I'd ever seen. Like, I'd ever watched, so it was the first one I ever got into. DBZ really was, like, my introduction to Japanese animation.
You are not alone in that. In fact, I would say that's probably the majority of people's story of the anime, is their first one being Dragon Ball Z.
It was also the first time I was disappointed showing someone what I thought was a really badass scene, and they're like, "Oh, okay." I'm like, I was like, "Oh, come on, man!" I remember the scene too. It was a scene there in the Saiyan saga, so it was very early on. And like, was it Gohan gets knocked down, and Goku's getting his ass kicked, and Gohan's like, "Leave my daddy alone." He, basically gets a really good hit on Raditz. I thought it was a really awesome scene. I mean, maybe it was also because I was baked, but I mean, I thought it was a great scene. And I'm showing my buddy, he's like, "Oh, okay." I'm like, "Come on, man.
Wait a minute.
I deserve more than that."
You just kicked me right in the nuts, basically. You're like, "Yeah, that is." They're just like, "Eh." And you're like, "Oh, huh. Well,
yeah, the first,
I have to go rethink life now."
That was really the first time I was like, "Okay, this is obviously not for everybody."
Yeah. Here's your sign.
Right.
All right. So, you about ready to get into the story of Akira Toriyama? All right. Our story takes place April 5th, 1955, in the town of Kyoto in the Aichi Prefecture of Japan. Karuzu Toriyama looks at his wife Tombi, whose face is awash in the sweat from the pain of childbirth. "Go, my wife, fight, surpass your limits, and give me a child." Upon hearing this encouragement, Tombi screams a powerful scream and her hair turns blonde and spiky. She then rockets a newborn Akira Toriyama with such force that he shoots through two walls and collides with a hillside, and the resulting shockwave levels half a city block. Thankfully, as the narrator tells us, it was an abandoned part of town, as the gods of censorship would demand out of them.
I hate that so much. Like, I'm gonna blow up this city. Oh, thankfully no one was there. Like, what are we talking about? No one was there.
Or it's like, "Hey, the helicopter blew up. Oh, it's okay. I saw their parachutes," even though there's obviously no parachutes there.
Right. Well, also, whenever that's like the first time they show up and blew, like, again, way early version Saiyan Saga, when Vegeta or Nappa blew up, there were people nearby. They were staying near. They were like,
right,
"What's in this hole?" And they're like, "Oh, thank God that place is abandoned." I'm like, what happened to the people who were there like 5 seconds ago?
Yeah, Dragon Ball Z Abridged did a great take on that too, where it's the helicopter scene, and they blow up the helicopter, and they're like, "Oh no, they blew up a helicopter. Oh, good, it was just a cargo helicopter. But the cargo was people." No. So Karazu holds his wife in a moment of tender love as the camera pans to the floor to show the blob of afterbirth smiling and laughing evilly. This sinister sentient placenta would go on to be Akira's greatest enemy in life, and the inspiration for Majin Buu from the Dragon Ball Z series. So there you go. Every word of that is true, Nate. I learned it. Yeah. Well, I was taking a shower and I looked down and noticed there's some mushrooms growing out of the shower drain. And I was like, "Hey, free food." And then I learned a lot of stuff while researching.
Yeah, Oft Off Topic branded.
Yeah, Oft Topic branded shower drain mushrooms. Buy them today.
That's right.
So, speaking about his childhood in a January 2014 issue of Men's magazine, Toriyama had described his childhood as, "I was a cheeky little brat, the kind who is strong to the weak and who wouldn't approach the strong. On top of that, my grades at the time were quite good, so I always had the privilege of being designated as a class officer by the teacher." So, sounds like he might have been kind of insufferable as a child, at least to other children.
Yeah, that sounds like.
Yeah, it's like, that's an odd quote to attribute to yourself. "I was a cheeky little brat." Piff, piff, piff. As many Japanese children of the time, Toriyama loved himself some Astro Boy and Gigantor, or as the Japanese knew it at the time, Tetsuo 28 Go. And one thing that totally blew his young mind was what turned out to be one of his favorite animated movies of all time, Disney's 101 Dalmatians. Toriyama was blown away by the high-quality, super smooth animation that was kind of heads and tails above anything at the time, which actually it was kind of true, because I remember as a kid watching 101 Dalmatians and be like, "Hey, this looks pretty slick compared to other movies around that time. I don't know, everything just seemed a little bit smoother. I think it's because they used a lot of rotoscoping in it, maybe. Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that movie more times than I care to think about, but I mean,
Oh, me
really,
too. I
that
mean, we
movie?
had a limited selection as a kids, so.
Oh no, I'm talking about recently.
Oh, recently? Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
like Disney
gotcha.
Plus. It's like they watched
Uh,
that and the Aristocats and oh my god, Princess and the Frog. I've seen they just it's their go-to. So
yeah, they
like
just
that
put it on
101
repeat.
Dalmatians is one of the ones they just throw on there.
Yeah. Yeah, I would assume that they mostly watch the newer ones. Kind of neat. They watch the older ones too.
Yeah, they
You're
don't go
like,
all the way back. Like they don't do Snow White and Cinderella stuff. But they really do dig the yeah, like 101 Dalmatians. They love it.
yeah, from there on, probably, which I guess would be kind of the start of the modern movie. But some of
Mm.
them, those very first, like the Snow White movies, they were really short. They were like 60 minutes or something like that, if I recall.
Yeah,
Anywho,
they aren't long. Well, not
yeah,
60. They're like a little longer, but not by much.
75 minutes or something like that, 80
Something.
minutes. Toriyama's love of animation spilled over into his childhood in the form of him getting into drawing. Like most kids, he doodled his favorite manga and anime characters, but eventually he'd get tired of that and started doing something his friends weren't doing. He started drawing his friends and family in an anime style, which Toriyama credits with being an important progression in his artistic career. Whereas most of his friends were just sitting around just doodling what they knew, he would move on and be like, "Hey, maybe I can anime-ify these characters and just things around on his day-to-day life." And as a young lad, him and his drawing buddies would often head down to the local art studio that would hold art classes to the public, and Toriyama and his friends would learn as much as they could and learn from the older kids and practice all they could there and use their free art supplies to practice with. Toriyama even won a contest at the studio for drawing one of the dogs from 101 Dalmatians. And he was a good student, with good grades, right up until high school when he decided he would rather have fun and hang out with friends instead of studying for school and college. He did wind up being the president of the Manga club in high school, so that was one thing. He still had his love of comics then. But in high school, he also made the decision to give up on the idea of college and just go straight into the working world, much to the horror of his parents. They were not happy with his choice, but Toriyama did not care. He was like, I just don't want to go to school anymore. I just want to go straight to a job. I'll deal with it after that. So right out of high school, he gets a job at an ad agency as a graphics designer. The job started off all right for him, and he did well at start, but by Toriyama's own admission, he was not a morning person, and he hated the day-to-day grind and having a schedule and everything else. So eventually, he would just kind of not show up for work some days or show up super late, wouldn't wear his uniform. Instead of showing up in a suit, he would just show up in like sweatpants and a t-shirt. And this didn't make the bosses exactly happy, but as you may know, in Japanese culture, they don't like to fire people. They just like punish them in multiple ways. And I
No, I
guess
didn't know that.
Yeah, they don't like firing people. They kind of do this thing where it's like, hey, we'll hire you for life. And if instead of firing you, they'll do weird stuff like lock you in an office with nothing but just your phone for 8 hours a day and try to get you to quit.
Yeah,
At
that
least,
sounds about right.
yeah, at least this was kind of the way it was back in like the 70s and 80s and before then. I think it may have changed since then a little bit. Because,
Nah, I mean you're probably right, but I've heard similar stuff happening.
yeah. Um, and obviously, this is slightly the case because with that attitude, he still managed to last there 3 years at that job before he quit. He wasn't fired, he quit. So in 1976, we have an unemployed Akira Toriyama. So Toriyama
So they
was
won.
Was it?
They won.
They won. Yeah, kind of. Although, I don't know if they actually punished him or did anything or if he just stopped showing up one day because he's like, I just didn't like working. I just didn't like waking up in the morning.
He's still employed there. They don't like fire you, and then they're like,
Yeah. Turns out he's still at work. He still just got his pile of checks sitting there waiting for him. So Toriyama was unemployed for about a year, just hanging out cafes, reading comics, being a layabout, sponging off of his parents where he stayed. But this would all change one fateful day when, to his absolute horror, Toriyama looked into his pockets and realized he was out of cigarettes and had no money to get more. This will not stand, Toriyama shouted to the heavens, and put to task every brain cell he had to come up with a way to make some money for them sweet, sweet cigarettes. Well, at the time, there was a couple of manga magazines out there that would accept fan submissions. And if they deemed these stories good enough, they would print the story, and then fans would get a vote on these stories. And if your story won the fan polls, you'd win money, sometimes up to $1,000. That can buy lots of cigarettes, Nate, especially back then.
yeah, $1,000 back then is a lot. That is actually a decent amount
Yeah,
of money.
yeah, it was. It was up to and including 1,000. It sounded like if you made the top 5 in the voting polls, you would get money, and it was the higher up you got, the more you'd make.
The up to is
Up to and including.
big.
Up to is a very I got 5th place. What do I get? $10. What?
Yeah.
$10. Yes, you do.
That's what always gets me about these. You'll go to the store and see some ads. They're like, "Oh, this up to 75%." Like, 1% is up to 75%.
Yes, exactly. And all they have to do is just like have one item that's at 75% and boom. Everything else will be
Right?
at 1%. They're just technically right.
Yeah, I worked at GameStop. That's where I just we'd have those bins out up to 75%. And
Yep.
like you're right. The one thing about like Wii Sports was 75% off.
Ha, that'd be the
Yeah,
one that they would throw in there. That and Wii Fit or something like that. It'd be like,
right. Like the game that came with the system.
yeah, everybody be coming, do you got any 75% off Call of Duties? And you're like, ha ha, no. Enjoy your Wii Fit.
We do it on the PS1.
Yeah. Everything you don't want is on steep discount. Also, around here, what they kind of do, whereas they, for like jobs, they'll be like, you can make up to $25 or $30 an hour. And then small print will be like, including tips and working overtime kind of stuff. Yeah. So, boy, no, exclaimed Toriyama at the realization he could use his love of manga and his ability to draw to make himself some money. So he sits down and he just starts drawing away and writing some small stories to submit. First, he tries to submit to Kodansha's weekly shonen magazine. He sends in what he thinks is going to win him the contest, and he misses the deadline. No money there. However, Weekly Shonen Jump did essentially the same thing. So, to Shonen Jump goes the first ever manga that Toriyama would write, something named A Wawa World, or A Weiwa World. Saw it pronounced a couple of different ways. This was a comedic
World.
A Weiwa World. It's spelled AWAWA World. So,
World.
yeah, world. This was a comedic manga taking place in ancient Japan with modern situations added in, like someone parking there is like someone's horse getting impounded for parking in a no parking zone, and that kind of stuff. We've seen that kind of humor before. And also, for some reason, there's a Superman knockoff in it too.
For some reason.
For some reason, you may I don't know how much old manga you've seen as anime. Superman makes an appearance in a lot of old Japanese culture, like a lot, like say pre 85, pre 90s, and I
Really?
think it's kind of actually. At least from what I've seen or been privy to, and I think it's one of those is a post World War II occupation thing, and all the American soldiers just reading Superman comics, so kind of just bled over.
Sure, why not?
Yeah. Well, this story is officially unpublished. It would be included in issue 5 and 6 of Birdland Press, the official fan magazine of Toriyama. And some of the original manuscripts that he wrote up for those two would actually travel around Japan in the mid 90s as part of a Toriyama art exhibit.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, here's something I did this once. I didn't really like it, but now it's in the museum.
Yeah, and now it's something that you can see. You can see my beginning works. You can see how far I've come since then. Undeterred at this failure, he writes a second short manga, this one titled Mysterious Rain Jack. This one the editors really liked. However, since it was a parody of Star Wars, he was ineligible to be submitted or voted on by the fans. So again, they were unable to pay him. This one also, too, would show up in his newsletter some years later.
Did they do that like he actually did it? He's like, yeah, here's a submission. They're like, well, we'd like to pay you, but.
Yep. Because here's the deal. Well, for some people, Toriyama would be crushed by this whole thing, but no, he like doubled down. He's like, don't you dare tell me I'm not good enough. Because he says he was very competitive at this point in his life. So he was like, don't you tell me I'm not good enough. I'm just going to start writing a bunch of stuff and I'll prove you wrong. So, also, he said by his own accord too, it's probably best he didn't win these contests because his idea was if he won these contests, he was literally just going to take his prize money, buy his smokes, and go back to his former state of life. But losing these contests lit a fire under his butts, and he decided he had to go prove that he's good enough to win this money. But
well, that's good then. It worked out.
Yeah. And this is actually kind of good because that mysterious rain jack you're just asking if they actually like gave him input on, they actually did. Especially one of the Shonen Jump editors, a man named Kazuhiko Torishima. This guy was actually just starting out in the industry too as an editor. He actually saw Torishima or blah blah blah. What's his butt? Toriyama's work, and he really liked. He's like, hey, there's some potential here. We can't print this stuff, but I like your work. So he actually started writing Toriyama and being like, hey, I like you. Here's what you can do to improve, and here's what we think you can do to make yourself better, and keep sending in the work. Also, too, from here on out, though, we've got Kazuhiko Torishima, who is the editor, and Akira Toriyama, who's the guy we're doing it on. So between Torishima and Toriyama, we kind of got close names. So I'm going to call the one dude Editor Torishima, and then we got Toriyama. So whenever you hear Editor Torishima, that's Akira Toriyama's editor.
Sweet.
Yes. And also, I like Editor Torishima, this one quote I found, because it is like the most Japanese editory sounding thing I've ever heard. He was talking about declining sales in manga titles. declining popularity means that you are not appreciated by your readers, so you need to take measures. Isn't that the most Japanese sounding thing you've ever heard? I don't know why. It's just,
Yeah.
it's not like sales are down. You got to get these things up. No, it's declining popularity. Declining popularity means you are not appreciated.
Coffee or winners.
Yeah. So editor Torishima had read Toriyama's work and he saw that talent there, and he actually said in an interview he started telegraphing Toriyama, which shows you how old this is. Remember when telegraphing was a thing? And somebody would
No,
wire
not
via
for me.
Western
I mean,
Union.
I know what it is, but I've never had to use it.
Oh, well, I've never really. Well, actually, I think I actually had to do it once too for like legal paperwork. Also, I remember back in the 80s too, it's tons of stuff like Western Union, the cheapest way to wire money.
Well, that I remember.
Do you? Are you sure? Or are you just
I did
making
it
that
once.
up for the sake of this conversation?
Nope, I actually had to do that once.
Okay. So in 1978, Toriyama submits Wonder Island, and this makes it into issue 52 of Weekly Shonen Jump, the first time he would actually get published.
Yeah,
Wonder Island, huh?
Yay.
Yay. Wonder Island is a story that centers around a kamikaze pilot who crashes into the Pacific Ocean and wakes up to find himself on a strange island. In an effort to get off the island and return home, he adventures with a caveman and his fairy friend, and learns to hang glide from a gorilla and other weird, wacky hijinks. And this is the first time he ever gets printed, and fans rush to the polls to vote it dead last in those stories of the week. And Toriyama gets no money because he came in last. Remember that, up to $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
Up to involves zero in some cases.
Especially how the ended by he finally made it home, where they're like, "Yeah, you're home. Now get back on that plane and blow up."
Yeah, right. That's actually, it was kind of the plot of Godzilla Minus Zero to a point.
Yeah. But don't tell me I still haven't seen it.
Okay. Toriyama again refused to lose and submitted several more stories over the next year, including Wonder Island 2 and actually Wonder Island 2 did have a Dirty Harry, Godzilla, C-3PO, and Ultraman parodies in it. That also failed to get printed, and he kept on submitting stories over and over again. Toriyama says during this time he wrote around 500 pages of stories and sent them in, and none of them clicked. However, during this entire time of submitting all these stories, editor Torishima had still been in contact with Toriyama, giving him pointers, telling him what he could do next, being like, hey, I want to encourage and watch you grow. And at some point, Toriyama told editor Torishima about his next project, a comic called Dr. Slump, which was going to be a gag manga about a scientist and his robots going on adventures. Editor Torishima liked the idea, but he had one suggestion for Toriyama. He wanted Toriyama to make the doctor less of the main character and have like a wacky girl as like the main character, because he thought that would go over with fans a little bit better. Toriyama was very unreceptive to this idea. He's like, nope, don't want to do it. I'm stubborn. But editor Torishima gave him a proposal. Do a one-shot manga with a woman as the main character, and we will print it and see how it does. If this manga is voted in the top 3, you change that main character to be a girl in Dr. Slump. If it comes in 4th or lower, you can keep doing your idea the way you want to. Toriyama agreed, and this mini comic to test out the idea we have is called 1979's Tomato Girl Detective. 1979's not part of the title. That's what year this is released. Tomato Girl Detective. Tomato, yeah. Oh,
okay.
Yeah. Okay, all right, whatever. It's a manga about a clumsy but well-meaning girl detective who seems incompetent right up until the end when she is competent enough to save the day. You know, those kind of stories like, oh, look, she's so, wacky and blah, blah, blah. And then at the end, it's like, oh, look, she knew what she was doing all along. Anyways, the readers voted on... Did she, though? I don't know. I didn't actually read the story. The readers voted on it, and it came in 3rd place. So, editor Torishima was right and said, haha, now you get to change it over. And Toriyama said, all right, fine, I'll do that. But in one act of stubbornness, Toriyama demanded to keep the name Dr. Slump. So, Dr. Slump gets released, and this series would be the big hit that would start Toriyama's path to superstardom. This series would run from 1980 through 1984. It takes place in Penguin Village and follows the adventures of a young girl robot named Areli Noramaki and her creator, Senbei Noramaki, as they go on adventures and deal with the nefarious deeds of the dastardly Dr. Masahiro. Masahiro? There we go. He's the series antagonist. Was it?
Where's the slump come from?
You know, I looked repeatedly, and I could not find any instance of why it's called Dr. Slump. Even, the main character is Dr. Senbei Norimaka, and I saw him kind of referred to as Dr. Slump, I think, in some of the synopsises, but yeah, I don't really know, man. I cannot, I looked several times, and it's just like, hey, Dr. Slump, and sometimes I'd be like, Dr. Slump's a character in this, but then every time I'd like click on links to that, it'd take me to Senbei Norimaki.
Well, it's that also like Look, man, this is not about Dr. Slump. Like, I got this information. Let's move on.
Yeah, this is true. So yeah, originally Senbei, the doctor, was supposed to be the main character, but they made Arali the main character, and apparently that was a genius move because Japan absolutely loved her. And she was a merchandising goldmine back in the day, and still kind of is. And, well, maybe you wouldn't, Nate, but if you're an old school anime guy, if you Google her name, you might actually recognize her. She's like a little robot girl. She's wearing overalls, and she's got a hat on with little baseball hat on with little wings on the side. She's also known to kind of do. She was one of the early anime characters to do like a little Naruto airplane run thing.
What a dumb way to run.
Do you know why they run like that? It's a old school ninja trick, and you're supposed to let your arms kind of hang limp at your sides and just sort of flop there in the wind because it saves energy and you don't burn as many calories as you do pumping your arms.
Oh, look at that. There's a live action Dr. Slump, too.
Yep, there is. We'll actually get into that in just a moment. Wait.
Oh, well, there you
go. So, anyways, she was a huge hit. In fact, actually, we'll get to that right now. There is even a live action section, part of a movie with with Arale in it. And are you seeing the one where it's like her in a mascot kind of suit? Was it one of those clips? Or?
No, I'm looking at CC.
Okay. Well, anyways, in the early 80s, there was a Jackie Chan movie that has Sammo Hung and Jackie Chan in. Jackie Chan actually gets to play Arale in a moment of it. Jackie Chan, also a huge fan of Arale Noromaki. But yeah, in the movie, Jackie Chan dresses up like a big mascot outfit and takes a sword and sword fights a bunch of dudes dressed as her. It's kind of cool, actually.
Okay, I see it. It's kind of creepy.
Well, that creepy Arale goes around massacring people with a sword. Good times.
Again, creepy.
Fun fact about the Dr. Slump manga. This manga had a character named Poop Boy, which was a sentient poop created by Dr. Norimaki while on the road with no toilet. This poo had a mouth and eyes and could talk and interact with people, and apparently it is the inspiration for the modern poo emoji. When Google came out the modern poo emoji with eyes and a mouth, they credited this anime to being the source of it. Yes, Google Dr. Slump Poop Boy, and you will see what I mean. It literally just looks like a
I definitely want to have
arms.
I want to have Dr. Slump in front of that.
Yeah.
For the sake of my sanity.
So, Dr. Slump is also the first appearance of Robot Toriyama. Since, well,
sorry, let's move on.
This is going to be one of those things that just bugs you. I mean, is it the fact that the poop is pink and human poop isn't pink, or is it the fact that the Google emoji of poop isn't pink?
No, I mean, I'm fine with the Google emoji not being pink. I mean, that's ridiculous. But yeah,
okay.
I can see why they ripped this guy off. I mean, it's pretty iconic.
Just the fact he's pink makes you angry, though.
Well,
just makes it too close to soft serve ice cream.
He doesn't like ice cream.
So, Dr. Slump is also the first appearance of Robot Toriyama. Since Akira Toriyama was an overall shy guy, he used an animated avatar of himself in every situation that he could for like interviews or to show up in the mangas. And you've probably seen it before. It's a cute little robot dude looking thing that kind of looks like he's wearing a gas mask, sort of, kind of. Just Google Robot Toriyama and you'll find it. He's also known as Robo Toriyama or Robotomiyama. I don't know. I saw a few different terms for him. And here's another fun fact, actually, about that. So the bad guy, Dr. Mashirito, there we go, Mashirito. His name is an anagram for Editor Torishima. And apparently that's who the character is actually modeled after, is Editor Torishima. And the reason for this is Toriyama submitted the look for the villain originally, and Editor Torishima said, this bad guy needs to look more sinister. And he instructed Toriyama to model the character after the man you hate the most. Then all of a sudden in the mail, Editor Torishima gets a letter from Toriyama basically with the new character design, and it looks just like Torishima.
That's awesome. I was like, yes, do that.
Yeah, and I think the whole thing was in good fun, but every interview I saw where they talk about it, there was no like laughing or ha ha ha, that made me laugh. It was just like, yes, I told him to send in a picture of the person he hates the most, and he sent in a picture of me. So he might have actually hated the man at the time, because there is one scene where like an early comics doodle of Toriyama about his equipment he's using, and one of them is like a picture of a pack of smokes, and it's like, cigarettes to prevent irritation from the editors. Yeah. Being mad at the editors. A tale as old as time itself, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, I put my heart and soul into this, and you think it's crap? Well, F you, buddy.
Yep. So not only was Series hot, but the girl robot, she was massive too. I mean, she was really big in Japan. We're talking like almost Goku levels of big. And she is actually still big. In fact, she was so big that during the run of this series, Toriyama's made a multi-millionaire out of the deal. By the end of the run, he was worth $5 million just from this series alone, apparently. And here's another fun fact, too. So, In 1996, Shigeru Miyamoto, when discussing Mario's center of gravity and how Mario ran in Super Mario 64, he refers to as sort of runs like Aurelie-chan with the correct sense of weight and body. So basically, that translates to Mario runs like a robotic child, which kind of makes sense too, because Mario does kind of do that ninja run too a little bit with his little arms at the side when you run fast.
Well, at least it's not like behind him; it's like to the side.
Well, that's because Mario's fat and he can't run fast enough that his arms flap behind him.
I can't believe you're body shaming.
Ha! Only because it's Mario. So, at the end of 1980, the Weekly Shonen Jump readers were asked to name their favorite authors, and Akira Toriyama was named the top 10 for the first time in his career. So, this actually kind of this voting him as their favorite. I mean, it was a great honor, but also it kind of sucked for Akira Toriyama because since he won this contest, he had to submit a 40 to 50 page story to for the readers because he won this award. Because of that, we got the comics known as Pola and Roid, of course, named after the Polaroid camera.
So he won the opportunity to make a 50-page story?
Yes, exactly. They're like, hey, we know you're really busy, but our readers voted you their favorite. And as a quote unquote honor, you get to write a 50-page story you didn't know you were going to have to. Enjoy.
Right?
Yeah, I know. And, this would actually wind up happening to him a couple more times too. And from the stories I read, it kind of sounded like it was more of a burden than a great thing to have done. I mean, one of those like, hey, I'm honored, yeah, but stop heaping all this extra work on me. I don't like it.
Seriously, man, stop it.
Yeah, it's like flattered, but for the love of God. One thing that the Polaroid manga did win him though, one thing that winning that contest, the Readers Poll contest did get him. It did win him a free trip to Switzerland, so I guess that might be kind of cool. Unless he hates Switzerland or the Swiss, then probably not such a great gift.
Why not? Free trip. I mean, I'd take free trip to Switzerland. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, Switzerland's supposed to be really beautiful. Of course, it gets really cold, but still.
Yeah. And also, once again, if you hate Swiss people.
Right. I mean, who hates Swiss people? I'm sure Normans, but still.
Yeah. Like two things I hate: people who are intolerant of other people's culture and the Swiss.
Right.
1981, Dr. Slump would earn Toriyama the Shogakukan Manga Award for Best Manga Series of the Year. Yay for him. Which apparently is a pretty big award. 1982, he marries manga artist Nara Mikami. And those two will wind up having 2 children. One of them a son named Sasuke, and then a daughter whose name I forgot to write down. Yeah. They are actually mentioned in, if you get the best ending in Chrono Trigger, they're actually mentioned at the end. You can run into Akira Toriyama in one of the, studio rooms, and they're like, hi, and he lists his kid's name. He's like, Dad's just working on some stuff right now. I'll be home soon. Something like that. Cute little Easter egg. It's hard to get that ending, though, because you got to beat the last boss at the very beginning of the game.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, it takes some effort, or you just got to do New Game Plus a couple of times, and it's really easy.
Yeah, man, I couldn't do it. I tried. I really did. I tried to beat that game. I've only beaten the game once, and it was with my main character dead.
Chrono Trigger?
Yep. He dies, you're supposed to get him back, and there's just this stupid throwing game where you're supposed to hit sheep. I could never get the timing right. And I think it was because I was playing on my, what was I playing on? I think I was playing on my, let's say DS or 3DS. I don't know. I was playing on something, and I just could not get the timing right. So finally, just
sheep throwing game, huh?
What?
Sheep throwing game, huh?
What was that? When the sheep came out, and you had to throw a ball at him. Did you ever play that? You played the game, right? Well, you had to get the doll to get him back.
Oh, okay, yeah. I probably played Chrono Trigger more than you ever have.
I know, right? Seriously, I played it one time through. It's like, he dies.
Well, also, keep in mind, last time I played it was 1994. So.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
he dies.
I mean,
you're supposed
literally
to get
30 years ago.
Bring him back.
I remember him dying. I remember the doll. I just don't remember throwing stuff at sheep.
Mm-hmm. Of course, maybe it was the very beginning of the game. It was the fair.
Oh,
at the
the
very
fair. Oh, yeah. Oh,
you go in there, you play that game, and you get a doll, and then you use that doll to bring him back. But I could never beat that stupid game, so he just stayed dead.
Gotcha. Huh.
In the next game, I tried to do it again. I just couldn't. I mean, I would just finally just said, you know what? I guess he's just staying dead.
Yeah. Look it up and see what the try to remember that throwing game, because I remember it being relatively easy or automatic or something like that. Because you got
it made it my copy because.
Well, also you played the remake too, so
right
with all the added stuff and added cutscenes. Mine was like the bare bones original version, no cutscenes or nothing.
Yeah, on the SNES.
Yep, on the Super Nintendo. I think I beat that game 8 or 9 times because I got all 8 or 9 endings. Not all of them were super different. So, yeah, some of them were just slightly different, like a little bit of text different at the end, but or a character's not there at the ending. So not all of them were like super different. But anyways, it's not so much a testament to how good of a gamer I am, it's just more of a testament to how lonely of a child I was. So, Dr. Slump series is a smash hit, and people love it. Like I said, it goes on for 4 years, and this series also made Toriyama a millionaire. However, just 6 months into this 4 year run, Toriyama is tired of the story and he wants to move on. But since Dr. Slump is so wildly popular, the powers that be told Toriyama that the only way he could end Dr. Slump is if he had another $1 million idea in the wings for them. So
Boy,
this
did
took
he.
some, yeah. This took some time though, and eventually editor Torishima said, "Hey, you want to move on? Well, I've got an idea for you. Look, you're a huge Jackie Chan fan, right?" Toriyama said, "Yes, I am." He was even playing a rally, and he's like, "Yeah, shut up." Anyways, I say you do a kung fu manga. And Toriyama thought for a minute and said, "Kung fu manga, huh? Hmm." And then he said, "No, I really don't want to. I want to be a gag manga writer. No kung fu mangas for me." However, after some pondering and thinking and probably an introspective walk on the beach while Dust in the Wind plays in the background, Toriyama does have a change of heart. But before he goes all in on his long running manga series that he would be known for, he decides to dip his toes into the Action Comics water with a short series that would be 1983's Dragon Boy. So if you look up Dragon Boy, and you're going to see a young Goku, no doubt about it. This story is 2 issues, 45 pages, and follows Dragon Boy and his quest to return Princess of the Flower Kingdom to her hometown or home kingdom.
Or
And
whatever it is.
yeah, if you look at it, you can really tell it's a prototype of early Dragon Ball. It even has a Dragon Ball in it that summons a dragon.
But that would
So,
do it.
yeah,
There's even
that
Dragon
would do
Ball in
it.
it. Well, then
There's
that
even a
makes
Dragon
sense.
Ball in it. It also summons a dragon. Yay! But only one Dragon Ball. Much easier to collect them all this time.
Right. Just the one.
Right after this, Toriyama also releases another miniseries, The Adventures of Tong Poo. This one is more modern style adventure with, the hover cars and guns and the capsule machines and modern buildings and modern life like you get in Dragon Ball.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, think Dragon Ball is the old school whimsical fantasy and Tong Poo is the modern day sci-fi fantasy. Smush them together and you literally have Dragon Ball.
Okay.
Yeah, one of those basically old school, one of those new school, just jam them together and boom, Dragon Ball, meld them together. And also, every time I saw the name Tong Poo, all I could think of is the movie title, To Tong Poo, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar. Yeah. It's another 30-year-old reference. Yeah, I know, but still. Once you hear it, you can't unhear it once you see Tong Poo. Also, Tong Poo's just kind of fun to say. So,
Hey, Tofu.
yep. Tong Poo and Dragon Boy are all done, and you can probably guess what's up next for Toriyama. And the main thing he's known for, Dragon Ball! Yes, yay! The manga that changed it all. The manga that actually ran from 1984 to 1995, with 519 individual chapters that totaled over 9,000 pages, and it has sold 260 million copies altogether, according to the studio. This whimsical series follows young Son Goku on all sorts of adventures, and the overall story is kind of inspired by the Chinese tale Journey to the West. And also, it should be noted too that in the manga there is no Dragon Ball Z, just Dragon Ball. There's a reason for that too, but in case you didn't know, there's no manga Dragon Ball Z.
Dragon Ball Z was a continuation.
Yeah. No, I mean, in the comics, there's literally no manga Dragon Ball Z, period.
Oh, for real?
Yep. The Dragon Ball Z is strictly an anime thing. And we'll talk about that why then in a little bit. Did you ever read any of the Dragon Ball manga?
Not really.
Nah. Neither have I, really, to be honest. I assume the cartoon's close enough as it is.
Yeah. I mean, I think I picked one up here and then. Like, I'm walking through a bookstore and I'll pick it up like, oh, okay. But yeah, I'm not like, I'm reading this manga.
Yeah, and then halfway through, you're like, this doesn't make any sense. And then you realize you're reading it backwards because they do manga thing. You know what I'm talking about. You read it right to left.
I do know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did that. Of course, I did the first time I did, but now I read so much manga now. I mean, I primarily read manga. It actually is problematic because I'll look at a regular comic book and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Oh, I'm reading backwards.
Right, I've done that before. I still do it every once in a great blue moon, but after half a second, my brain adjusts. It's like, oh yeah. 1986, and Enix Japan is starting a new series, Dragon Quest, and it needs someone to do the art and character designs for it. Editor Torishima gets on the horn and tells Enix that Toriyama would be perfect for this. And despite the fact Toriyama had no idea what a role-playing game was, he agreed to do the job. And perfect for it he would be, because role-playing games would never be the same. Dragon Quest, arguably more popular and more influential than Final Fantasy, at least early on. Nowadays, I don't know. But early on, it was definitely bigger than Final Fantasy. And
I mean, yeah.
Dragon Quest 2 is my first RPG game, actually, too. Rent it from a video store. And also, too, there was the Dragon Quest law that almost went into effect, too, where they couldn't release Dragon Quest on a weekday or on a work
I heard
day.
about that.
Yeah. Apparently, it wasn't that close to becoming law because Enix was like, fine, we'll move it to all the Saturdays and stuff. And they are great games, though. I thoroughly enjoyed them. Akira Toriyama would go on to.
They really are good games. Let's see. I only beat one.
Yeah,
Though.
you beat.
Not
I think you
one,
played like
in,
9, I think, didn't you?
Yeah,
9 or 10.
It was the one for the PS. Like, it was one that came off the phone. That's why I beat it. It's because on my phone.
Yeah,
And
which
so
was
could
originally. I
load
think it was
up
originally for the PS2 as well, or PS3 maybe.
It was.
Yeah.
PS2.
It was a really good game, though. I thoroughly enjoyed that one.
I really did. It was a really good game.
Yep, they're all actually pretty good in their own ways. Especially some of the early NES ones too, because they were kind of ahead of the curve on things you could do, like multi-character stories and this and that. Storylines would bounce around between different characters and eventually like tidy itself up in the end and tie itself together in a neat little bow. So the way the Dragon Quest games work out was the writer for it, Yuji Horii, first would send rough sketches of the characters with their background information to Toriyama, who would redraw them and fine-tune them and hone them into what you would finally see and send them back to Yuji Horii, who would approve the finished work. In 2016, in an interview, Toriyama revealed that because of the Dragon Quest series was basically stuck in the medieval kind of times, he said that limited his artistic options and it made every iteration of that game harder to design over and over again. Because, you can't really also go sci-fi kind of with the guys because, it is stuck in old school swords kind of eras.
Mm-hmm.
And it is kind of understandable, too, because I kind of say this as a general thing, too. And, I mean, this is in the most loving way possible, but Toriyama kind of suffers from like Simpson syndrome, where that man has designed so many characters over the years. Eventually, they kind of all look alike in a way. Like you could play like 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon with any of his characters and be like, so and so looks like so and so, who looks like so and so, who looks just like blah blah blah.
Yeah,
and that's not a knock on his talent. That's more of just a slight on how many characters he's had to design over the years, and that's got to be hard.
I mean, especially with his specific art style. There's only so many things you can do.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, because it's. I mean, his style does improve and branch out over time, but not a whole lot really. One of the things that who would design for Dragon Quest would be one of the most iconic video game characters of all time, the Dragon Quest slime. Not quite as huge in America as it is in Japan, but it's still pretty big over here. Because you see the slime, you're like, hey, that's cute and adorable. And
yeah, I mean, he's popular enough. I mean, I've definitely taken him and used him for my needs.
Yep. I've got stickers on my car because my car kind of looks like a little blue slime.
Yay.
And if you think about it, Dragon Quest slime is kind of just a smoothed out poo emoji.
Oh, yeah, I guess I didn't think about that.
Yeah, neither did I really. So when a slime gets old and wrinkly, they become a poo emoji. Ooh, I like that. That sounds like we could make a Pixar movie out of that. Nah, not Pixar. That's too nice. DreamWorks movie out of it. Nah, that's still too nice. Let's do like a Fox Studios movie.
Fox Studios presents.
Yeah.
Smooth that slime. Or smooth that
poop. Fox Studios presents a smooth poo. It's like the ladies' man with a poo emoji. Hey, ladies. Anyways, I gotta say the Toriyama, his monster designs are also really good in the Dragon Quest series. They got some really cool looking monsters. To the point I was actually like legitimately excited some games be like, I'm going to a new continent. Look, there's gonna be new monsters to see. Yay. Yep. Also, doing this research, I learned there's actually a Dragon Quest anime that was that came out in 1989 that he designed characters for. Never knew it existed. Didn't bother to look it up and see how it was. Maybe I'll do that later.
Maybe I won't. Screw you guys.
Also, in the Dragon Quest games, there's a running gag about the puff puff, where, I don't know, usually girls will drag you into a back room and it'll go puff puff, puff puff over again over a blank screen, simulating stuff. Probably you've seen that in the one game you played, probably, I'd assume. Maybe not.
Puff,
Anyways, yeah, puff puff. Start out like Dragon Quest 2 or something like that. You go talk to some bunny girl. She's like, would you like a free puff puff? And you're like, yes or no. And if you pick yes, the screen like goes black and all of a sudden it goes puff puff, puff puff. Puff puff, giggle, puff puff, and then the screen like fades back and it's like, you've been puff puff. Did you like it?
I vaguely remember. Yeah. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. You're like, I hope this is going somewhere, Sean. But yeah, that whole thing, apparently that is a gag that started in Dr. Slump, and it made it in Dragon Quest games as a nod to Toriyama. And speaking of Toriyama's specialty, character design. If you want to know his process for coming up with characters, it is thusly. First, he comes up with a concept idea for a character. 2, then he comes up with a personality for them. 3, then he just starts drawing heads alone until he comes up with a head that matches the personality that he likes. Then he designs the rest of the body around the head, And then finally, he does all the coloring and any little extra details and flair that he needs on it. And as far as coming up with the ideas himself, he usually takes inspiration from things that happens in life. Good example of this is at one point his kids were really into a TV genre known as Sentai heroes, which is where a group of people, transform from everyday Joes into superheroes to go fight bad guys. Power Rangers being the most obvious example of this. Well, his kids
Yeah.
were huge into that, and they were watching one of these, and Toriyama just walked in there and he just watched them for a minute, watches and goes, it'd be pretty fun to make a bad guy version of this, and thus the Ginyu Force was born. Or another example, he got a pet Cornish Rex cat, and he loved the look of it, and he kind of liked the aloof personality this cat had, and boom, Dragon Ball God, Cat God Beerus was designed after that cat. So yeah,
Pretty
basically
cool.
something happens in his life, and he's like, I might be able to design a character after that. So there's some advice if you ever hit a block. Just be like, hey, here's an event that happened. I could make a character out of it, maybe. Walking down the street and there's a homeless
Maybe.
person like whizzing on the wall. Be like, there's Sir Peas a lot. Or Brick Peeington or something. And also, as far as character design, Toriyama has some advice for you. If you're just doing a one-time character drawing like he would do for Dragon Quest and the such, feel free to go nuts with the detail. Make them as, exotic and fancy looking as you want. All sorts of like little spots and horns and this and that on them. However, if it's a character you're going to be drawing over and over again, say for a manga, you want to keep it simple because if you make it too detailed, you're going to hate drawing that character over and over and over again. Toriyama uses the example of Cell from Dragon Ball for that. The Cell characters has a bunch of cool looking spots all over him in his transformations. Akira's like, I like the look at first. By the end of it, I absolutely hated drawing those spots. He hated it with a passion. Yeah, you see where he's going
He
with that,
named
though.
each spot.
Yeah, honestly, the way this man sounds, he probably did. And now I am making you Chester P. Spottington. I hate you most of all after you divorced your wife. Yeah. It sounds like something I would do, actually. And now I'm going
Son
to
of a
give you a
bitch.
fun Toriyama quote. An interviewer asked him, do you take notes? And Toriyama responded, no, I don't do that. That's why I keep forgetting things. And if I don't forget stuff, new ideas won't come to mind. I kind of feel that.
Yeah.
Yep. So, 1986, and we are 63 chapters into the Dragon Ball manga series, and Dragon Ball the anime starts up. You don't know how much about the original Dragon Ball anime, do you?
Not much.
I watched a bunch of it, and honestly, I really liked it. It's less actiony, but it's more whimsical fun. Hey, look, we're gonna come across a giant angry pig man and have to fight him or outsmart him or this or that. I liked it. It has simplicity and, more jokes in it, more perverse pig discussions and stuff like that. Yeah. So, how much did Akira Toriyama have to do with the Dragon Ball anime? Not a ton, really. He helped pick the voice actors. He did some design notes. He did some of the world designs for stuff, and yeah, nothing a whole lot to report for the actual Dragon Ball manga. It is a huge hit in Japan, and 1989 though, that's when Dragon Ball Z finally arrives. And like I said earlier, that's the one that probably 85% of everybody says is their first anime that they've ever seen, including you, Nate. Not me, though. Not me. I'm better than all of you. That honor goes to 1984's Robotech for me. Saw a couple episodes as a wee one, loved it, and then never ever saw it again because, I don't know, it just wasn't on that channel anymore. That was a bummer.
Yeah, it's actually the first time I watched it was on TV for some reason. I remember it like just being on, and I was like, "What is this?" And
Cartoon Network,
that was
possibly?
pretty cool. Yeah, then I moved
Yeah.
on, and then after that, the first anime, I actually like sat down. My buddy's like, "Hey, you should watch this. Really cool." With some kind of like the Demon City something where ended up this giant monster with 9 long laser shooting penises knocked down the city. So yeah, it was definitely like I don't know if I like anime, but then I started working for Mr. Gaddy's out here. It's a pizza place, and they had in their cartoon room started playing Dragon Ball, and I was like, oh okay, Dragon Ball Z, and that was when it was from Adult no, it's Adult Swim. It was oh man, it was the anime block on Cartoon Network.
Toonami?
Yep, they played Toonami and I was like, oh man, this looks pretty awesome. And then I started buying the VHS, and then I got all the VHS up to Cell Saga.
And the one thing too that this anime does so good is it leaves you on a cliffhanger that makes you have to watch the next episode.
Well, it does, but it doesn't because oh my god, like especially when you're watching the VHS, like this time on Dragon Ball, last time all this happened, great, and they play the episode and they stand around growling at each other for a long time. And
yeah, well, it depends on which episode you're watching because there are some times they could definitely cut out some
oh my
things.
god, come
Hey,
on,
look,
man, do
I'm gonna
something.
build up this spirit bomb for 8 episodes.
Yeah, like, and
What's
then
this
it
episode
doesn't
gonna be?
work.
It's gonna be a whole lot of flashbacks with Goku just standing there with the heads above his head, hands above his head, going. "Ah!"
And then like next time on Dragon Ball Z, they show you a clip, and then they again on the VHS, you start the next episode. Like, last time on Dragon Ball Z,
Yeah,
I'm like,
right.
I was
I've
just
actually seen
here.
shows make that joke too, where it's like last episode is like a 10-minute recap, and like on this episode another 10-minute preview, and then it's like, and we're over. Because yeah, some of them really did feel like that. And also, I just think you had a pizza place that would have like a little kids' cartoon room playing Dragon Ball Z. That must have been fun. Hey, come down here to the pizza place, get your kid all excited and full of sugary soda, and put him in a room with a violent cartoon with other kids. Nothing bad could
Right.
happen.
No,
I
nothing
could
bad
just
at
literally
all.
picture like it's like kids like suplexing each other into the wall and stuff. uh, and that's gonna do it for part 1 of our series on Akira Toriyama. Stay tuned for the conclusion next week, where we discuss why the Z in Dragon Ball Z exists, why Toriyama wanted to cut off Goku's tail, Akira Toriyama's work after Dragon Ball. We dispel a common Dragon Ball Z myth, and we find out if Toriyama is a no-good dirty crook. All this and more on next week's episode. This is where the ending jingle goes. This is where the ending jingle goes. I don't know if we need one. I don't know if we'll get one. But if we do, then here is where it goes.